Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next episode of the SPYPOINT Podcast. I am your host, Trent Marsh, joined today by hunter extraordinaire Melissa Bachman, which is always a pleasure to talk with her. Before we get started, remind everybody, rate, review, subscribe wherever you're consuming podcasts. And of course, you can find us on social media throughout to stay up to date with the latest from SPYPOINT and of course with Melissa. But we're going to go ahead and get started. Always plenty to talk about when we get together, and appreciate you coming on today.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate you having me.
So it's nice we were able to actually catch you at home. I know now that 2022 is back to like the return to normalcy from some perspective. You've been back on the consumer show trail, and you've been busy. How many consumer shows did you make it to so far this year?
A lot. I did not count. It was close to every weekend from January till I just got done last weekend. So gotcha. I've been on the road pretty much nonstop, either at consumer shows or speaking at banquets, things like that. I absolutely love it, but the travel is what wears you out, right? Like they just don't have the staff to make things work in a lot of places. And I think 4 out of 5 of my last ones, they missed my flights. The connections didn't work. So I ended up renting a car and driving. So the travels what always gets to you.
It was never fun anyway. Like travel's never been fun. And my rule is if it's 12 hours or less, I don't even think about flying, because by the time I fly, I've got 12 hours invested, but at least when I drive, I control my fate to some extent. So yeah, for me, it's always been that way. But the only time I've flown since the whole COVID and everything was SHOT Show this year. And true to form, I almost got left in Chicago after running through an airport and last minute gate change it and just, all that kind of fun stuff. So have another trip coming up here before too long. We'll see how that goes. But it's never fun anyway. And now with everything being short staffed like it is, I'm kind of impressed you were able to find a rental car, because there's that portion too.
Yeah, I actually got stuck in Chicago one night, and I actually thought about going out and trying to buy a car because they had no rental cars because one of our boys needs a vehicle. And I thought, well, maybe then I was like, it's Chicago. I don't know if I should just go out trying to buy a car now.
Facebook marketplacing an emergency car in Chicago sounds like an episode of Dateline.
It might not end well.
Yeah,
so something. Just stay at the airport and just call it good for the next day.
Something there is going to get sideways for sure. So you wrapped up the bulk of it. Do you have any places where you're planning on being this summer where people can come find you, or are we pretty well wrapped up?
I'll be at BowFest coming up. That'll be in July. That's kind of a fun thing that they do in Superior, Wisconsin. It's just a whole bunch of people with music and that are all shoot bows, get together. So we've been doing it. I think Ben and I have been going for like 5 years, and they do an incredible job. I'll also be at the NRA show coming up down in Texas. I think that's Memorial Day
weekend, in Houston.
Yep. So I will be there as well. So those are kind of the only 2 shows. I've got a ton of turkey hunts coming up. We've had like 60-mile-an-hour winds for about as long as I can remember here. So we're trying to wait till we get a little bit better weather. We're going to go do our turkey hunts, and Jax is going to be turkey hunting in Nebraska this year too. So he's really pumped.
Nice. Yeah. Of course, by the time this airs, it will have already opened. Our youth season opens this weekend, and hoping to get my oldest out for his first. We're a little behind on everything, so we'll see if we're able to pull this together and make it happen. But yeah, he's pretty jacked up. I've had a red dot mounted on one of his Nerf rifles for the last couple months for him to get used to doing that. So that's been going on. I'll be sitting in the office working, and I randomly start hearing Nerf pews through the he's got the gun back out. If you've never seen a Nerf rifle mounted on a tripod with a bog death grip, like it's a sight to behold. Just go sit on the toy box, put the gun in the bog, get used to using it, because that's coming.
True. Then they're used to it and they're comfortable, and that's what it's all about, is making sure they're having fun, that they're comfortable by doing those things. That's what they're used to. Let them practice. When you get out in the field, it'll be second nature.
Yeah. I'll be the problem in the field. They'll have it figured out. It's me that's the problem at that point. So yeah. So turkey season coming, obviously. How many states are you planning on going to then?
We have so many tags in this area that we don't have to travel real far anymore. We have land in Illinois as well, but we didn't even get tags there this year. It's just, it's such a long drive when you have such amazing turkey hunting here.
Right.
And we get so many tags. I think we get, we get 5 for the state of South Dakota with a gun, and we get a 6 with a bow. And then I get 2 more on the tribal land, and then we get 3 more in Nebraska. So that's 11 right there.
Right.
And that's all within 30 miles of our house.
That's
11 tags per person.
You can't beat that.
You can't beat that. No,
it's amazing. Now, last year, like we talked about it at ATA, because I saw, as soon as you had the footage out on social, I sat at my phone and my computer staring at it. That bear hunt that you had with Ben this year, I'm at this point, the show hasn't aired, I don't think, but everybody's seen probably the social footage. Recreate that because when you told me, like, the footage itself is bonkers, but then the story around it makes the footage that much better. So let's set the scene and take everybody back to that for a minute, because you were there. I'm standing in my booth slackjawed because that's an awesome story.
It was really neat. Kodiak brown bear is something I've always wanted to do. I've had the privilege to hunt the peninsula twice for brown bear, but I had never had the chance to hunt Kodiak. So I started researching it. I was at the SEI show, and I ended up meeting up with Cole Kramer, who's kind of, I would say, the top-notch guide that you could possibly ever go with. And he's very kind of, I would say, picky on who he brings along. And I wasn't necessarily sure why at first. Well, once doing the hunt, I completely get it. It was the hardest hunt I've ever done, both probably physically and mentally. Like, it's a real challenge. It's so much walking, it's heavy gear, it's packing everything. On the peninsula, you can land a super cub anywhere you want, and you just get out and hunt. On Kodiak, you can only land on water or a beach. So all that ground in between, the only way to access it is to walk. And when you walk, you have to put everything on your back. So we did that. We were out, I think, for 14 days, something like that. My husband had a tag. His was an archery tag, and I had a tag, and I was going to use a rifle. We could do any which way, but we decided he wanted to do it with a bow. I was going to do it with a gun. And it was just an unbelievable hunt. We finally got to where we were going, all tenting, snow at night, snow piles up on our tent. I mean, literally freezing. Our boots would be frozen solid in the morning because they'd get so wet during the day that we couldn't even go out right away because you couldn't get your foot in the boot. So you're like, well, we got to take like a half-hour break before we can get started. Nobody can get the boots on. So that was an experience. But when we finally did spot the bear Ben was going to go after, we decided to try to, it's all rushed at the last minute because you realize that bear's coming to a place where you can get to them. A lot of these bears are on a river system hunting for fish. And what we try to do is get in front of them, and they're moving fast. So you gotta make your moves quickly. And where Cole wanted to set up with Ben, if I sat right there with him, I literally would have no footage, right? It would just be boom, the bear's there and that's it. So I said, you guys stay down there. We put a GoPro behind them. I said, I'm going to sit up higher so I can see everything happening and kind of get it from a bird's eye view. Well, they're sitting and I'm watching this bear and I'm thinking, he's going to come, he's going to step on them, because they were set up for the bear to be either in the river or on the opposite side. The bear was on their side of the river. And I'm thinking, we're talking like inside 5 yards here. And this bear's coming and coming. And I'm thinking, did they tell me I was supposed to give them some sort of signal if the bear's on their side? I'm like scrambling, trying to remember. I'm like, I don't think so. And all of a sudden I saw Ben draw, and this bear came through at 4 yards. And Ben is at full draw. And he said the bear was so close that when he saw it in his peep, he didn't even have a clue where he was at on the bear because it's just all brown. So he actually had to lift his head up, see where he was at, put it back down. He made the shot, perfect shot, zipped right through the bear. The bear kind of took off and it actually turned back and looked at him like, what was that? And I thought, oh no, he's going to charge them. He didn't. But what that bear did is come up right to where I was. So I'm filming and this bear is taking off and I hear them yelling. And I thought they wanted me to see where the bear went. So I was kind of looking and, trying to keep rolling, even though I couldn't see. And I realized they're saying, get out of there. And I bolt out of there. And this bear dies, I mean, super close to where I was sitting with just my camera gear. And I thought, that might not have been the best decision I ever made, just to sit up there. But I was so sick of carrying stuff that I thought it would work out. It did. It was a phenomenal trip. And then later I was able to get my bear. He was a monster. It was just an incredible backcountry adventure. I mean, it is as hard of roughing it as you will probably ever find. But it was a dream hunt for us. It's something my husband always wanted to do, to see how excited he was when it all went down. I mean, it's all as real as can be. And the cameraman who was supposed to come with us said he couldn't come like a week before. So we ended up filming the whole thing ourselves, and it turned out awesome. It was just an unbelievable trip, but it really shows you how strong you have to be both physically and mentally to do some of these hunts and to make them successful, because they're not always easy. And this was definitely not one for the easy column.
Well, and you kind of touched on it. Like it's not easy just as random person that actually goes and does the hunt. And I've been on just enough filmed hunts to realize that I'll tag along every so often, but to then be doing it, self-filming it essentially, then with cameraman being gone, for anybody that's listening that thinks you want to be in outdoor television, I doubt it. I really doubt that you actually do. Like there are definitely worse ways to make a living, but there's that perception versus reality thing. And yeah, that whole element of adding that portion to it. And then if you're going to wait for a hunt of a lifetime, go kill a brown bear, drawing a bow at 4 yards and filming it all. Like, yeah, what else could you possibly want? Right.
Yeah, it was really awesome.
And it all looks easy when you put it on TV. You just make it look so easy.
The thing that you forget is, having a cameraman is one extra set of people to carry stuff. Honestly, that was the biggest challenge for me. I carried the same amount of weight as everybody else, and that is a lot of weight. So if you had one more person, like for example, I had this big power pack because you got no power for 14 days. Obviously, I have to charge batteries. And so I had this charged up, and I think it weighed, 16 pounds, which doesn't seem like that big a deal until I put that at the bottom of my pack with everything else. I was like, oh, I really wish we could have spread it out to another person, would make it nicer. But, I look back and it just makes the trip more memorable. It makes the experiences. We had so much fun. We didn't wreck any gear, which was completely amazing because it rained all the time.
Don't try that a second time. That won't happen.
No. I'm hard on gear, and because things they're out there, right? We don't quit when it rains. We don't go in. The gear better figure it out or it breaks. That's usually how it goes.
Yeah, no doubt. So that was kind of a bucket list or a dream hunt. What else? What else is left? What's gotta do this for you or Ben? Of course, now kind of Jax is starting to work his way into it. So now the fun transitions from, okay, I've had my fun. Now we can work Jax into it. But whether it's planned for this year or not, or something you're still working on, what really kind of has your dander up?
Another hunt that we did last year as well, and that's probably one of my absolute favorites, is moose hunting. We go up to the Yukon. It is unbelievable. And normally I would never plan 2 big trips like that in 1 year. But because of COVID, it pushed our moose hunt off and we weren't able to do it. So we ended up with 2 really big hunts, literally almost back to back. So we were gone from home for like 4 weeks in a row. Not ideal. Both Ben and I. Jack probably wondered what happened to his parents. My mom and dad took care of him. His mom and dad took care of the older kids. But the moose hunting is just such a special experience, because unlike the bear, I would say moose hunting is pretty easy. It's fun. It's something that if I didn't ever have to do, if I won the lottery tomorrow, that would be a hunt I would do every single year. And it is expensive, so I can't do it all the time, but it's just so enjoyable. You have a nice hard-sided cabin. You get to see the northern lights every night. You ride around in a boat, you eat snacks, you go in for lunch, you have a nap. It's just, the total opposite of some of the really hard hunts. But I like having that sometimes because you work hard on certain ones. It's nice to have something that's just an enjoyable experience. And my first question to Dave is, who we hunt with, is I said, how old does Jax need to be before he can come and do this? Because I will start saving up now for him. And he said, well, he's got to be 12. And so it's going to be a little bit, but the other thing that makes it so special are the people we hunt with. We hunt with Dave Marsters. He's one of the owners at Yukon Big Game Outfitters, and he is the best person I've ever hunted with. He has the best stories. I could literally just shoot my bull moose and just sit in camp with him and have him cook and tell stories, and you would have the best experience ever. So I think over the years, you kind of learn the importance of that. I've had some really good hunts with people that, you know, they're okay. But now I really put as much value on the people that I'm around as the animals, because it can make the entire experience. You never know what the animals are going to do, but if you have good people, you're going to have a wonderful time.
Yeah. And that's another thing too. Like, you know, people that are wanting to get into the industry, and people that, even whether it's in front of the camera or just working in the industry in general, it's a job. So it's just like any other job. And no matter what job you've ever had, it's way easier when the people that you work with are people you like working with, because yes, it looks like it's just hunting all the time, but that's not where the majority of the time goes. And even being on the marketing side of it, you know, everybody's like, oh, you know, I'd love to have your job. I don't think you would. It's not what you think it is. I get it. I understand why you think that, but yeah, the people matter so much.
And for me, I've been so lucky because I book every hunt. So I plan every hunt. I book every flight. I book every car rental. I do all the travel, all the hunt planning. So if I have a wonderful experience, I will go out of my way to make sure I get to go back. And that's why sometimes even in my show, you'll see, you know, I go to Montana hunting the Powder River every year. I go to Nebraska hunting the Sandhills every year for muleys. You have different hunts that you go to, and yeah, the animals are good, but it's really the people that bring you back. And I think people can kind of sense that within a show or whatever it is. It just makes it more enjoyable to watch, and it makes it more enjoyable for me to be there. So if you can put all those things together, you're just going to have a better time from start to finish. Plus, I think it makes you a better hunter, because you all kind of get on the same page, and you understand what the others are thinking and doing, and you work together. And that's what's so important.
Well, and I know we've talked about it before too. Like you have people reach out, because the people you hunt with become part of the show also. Like they get to know you, they get to know Ben, and they've watched Jax grow up and all that kind of stuff, but then they get to know these people as well. And that's how we all are in our daily life too. Why should it shouldn't be any different anywhere else. We all have those kind of go-tos and those relationships, and that's what makes it enjoyable. That's what we want people, whether they're old hunters or new hunters. I think that's kind of the message that we always want to be resonating with them anyway, is that the people matter side of things.
Yeah. And it's with any job, anything, it's all about the relationships, you know, like even with hunting, I try to get so many new hunting families and people involved. And even if, let's say, your wife or girlfriend isn't necessarily interested in hunting, spending that time together is so worth it. They don't have to hunt. It's just going out and doing something together, or going coyote hunting together, or, you know, whatever it may be, trying to like kind of set the hunt aside and be like, you know, this is something we can do as a family or do together. And I think all of us, especially with how much people are on their phones and doing stuff, we're becoming a lot more disjointed, whether it's families, whether it's couples, whatever it is. So I think when we can find things that everyone's going to enjoy doing together, you got to really embrace that and understand, you know, this is good to be out in nature, to get fresh air, to walk, do a little exercise, but that bonding time, that's worth a lot too. And I think sometimes people don't put enough emphasis on that or give it as much acknowledgement as it should have.
Well, it's tougher to take pictures of that and put that on social media, those moments. It's easy, you know, the end shot, you know, the grip and grin, that's easy. That's an easy photo opportunity, but just, you know, those maybe not as quiet as we would hope moments sitting in a ground blind with a kid turkey hunting, you know, sometimes those are tougher to convey. But
really, you don't want your phone out, right? You want to be enjoying them.
You want to be in that moment.
And that's always the challenge, you know. That's why I like, you know, little cameras, whatever, so you can get some of those things without having to have your phone right there in front of you.
Right. And that you kind of touched on one of the other things I wanted to talk about. Hunting recruitment, hunter retention has been it's been a big topic in the industry in general, specifically in the last 5 or 6 years. And I know you've spent a lot of time working on programs like that, and working with all kinds of, whether it's companies or different groups within the industry on hunting recruitment. And obviously, you being a woman and having kind of that perspective of bringing in women hunters, female hunters that have been such a, really a lot of those gains we saw in the mid-teens were female hunters by and large. So kind of two questions. First of all, just hunter retention in general. Is there somewhere you think that we're missing the mark in general, that, there's a lot of effort going into it, but is there some part of it that we're just not making the transition? But then also specifically for, like you said, wives and girlfriends that maybe weren't around it, or raising daughters, what do you think is the most important part of getting the women involved in the outdoors as well, and making it not feel like such a, well, this is a manly thing to do, take the gun and go to the woods and shoot dinner? Like how do we make that transition wholeheartedly and for the better of the industry in general?
I really think it comes down to the hunting community feeling like a welcoming community. Okay. Like, I have spoke so much about it, and there's nothing I hate to see more than within our own hunters having squabbles, fights, disagreements, knocking each other online. Because I just saw something last week. I was heading to where I was going to speak, and on Michael Waddell's page, people were just ripping him apart because he used a decoy, and he took it like this and shook the decoy, and he made that gobbler run straight into him. So what? It's legal to use a decoy. Why would that matter? And I have never seen the just hatred coming from people over them not liking it, saying, well, you're not a good enough caller, you're not this and that. And I literally could not believe it. Like, he's one of the best turkey callers I've ever met. He's a great turkey hunter. And at second thought, as long as it's legal, as hunters, what we need to remember is we cannot do things like that. Because what it does, you're not going to push him away, right? You're not going to push me away. But the person out there who's maybe getting into hunting, it scares them because they see all these people attacking someone who legitimately knows what they're doing. And they think, well, I don't exactly know what I'm doing. What if I post something and it's not quite up to whoever's standards? Are they going to attack me? And the thing is as long as you read the regulations and you are within the law, I think as a hunting community, we really need to stand up for each other. I always will make comments in and say, you know what, guys, put a hashtag kindness wins, right? We need to get back to being happy for each other. And a lot of times it comes down from jealousy. It comes down from whatever it is, or someone feeling like they're an elite hunter because they can shoot a turkey without a decoy. Who cares? Like, I really, really strongly believe that, we're doing so much to bring people to our community. And then we look like a bunch of people who are constantly infighting, whether it's about camouflage, whether it's about vertical bow versus crossbow, public land versus private land, trail cameras, no trail cameras, all these different fights that you see. It's just awful to see. And I always worry about that person who's interested in getting into it. And they see this family of passionate hunters who all love it so much. But then it becomes almost like, gosh, I don't know. They don't seem like such a nice community. And right. I think that's the number one thing that we have to fix to keep people coming back and to make them feel comfortable. Because let's say I was getting into whatever it would be, NASCAR or whatever it could be, and you've got all these passionate fans. If they seemed like they were going to jump all over me because I didn't know everything, I sure wouldn't want to put my neck out on the line and put a picture out. And I think we have to remember that. And everybody starts out from scratch at some point, right? And we're all learning. I still learn stuff every single day, and I hunt over 300 days a year.
Right.
But people forget that. And I think that's the number one thing that we need to do, not just for women hunters or kids, but just for the whole hunting community, is to remember that unity is what we need. And there's nothing the anti-hunting community loves more than to see a divide among hunters. Yeah. I see people ripping on me saying, you're a trophy hunter, you're terrible. Wait a minute. I put the antlers on the wall, but I still ate the meat. So please don't give me that back and forth. It's very unfortunate. And I think it hurts our community.
No, I sadly, you've known me long enough to know that that's a soapbox I will hop on just about any time that comes up. Cause 100 couldn't agree with you more. That is by far and away my biggest pet peeve. And it's frustrating coming from someone I had some hunters in my family, but I didn't, it wasn't, a lot of what I've done has been self-taught. And it's one of those deals where the internet has been a great resource, and I've met some great people and found some awesome contacts that have helped me grow as a hunter over the years. But that's also where all of that negative and all of that vitriol comes from, is that online community. And it's always a little bit funny to me that it is the people who could dig in and say, do it my way, for lack of a better term, the professional hunters that it's never those people, never broadly. It's always random keyboard warrior in Dubuque or Paducah or Morton or wherever it's that guy that nobody's ever heard of that has the most rigid and staunch, if it's not done this way, then it does it. And okay, Bill, in wherever you are, like, why does that opinion didn't kill it on your farm? You didn't pay for the tag. Why are you so concerned about the way that if it was done legally, you don't have to celebrate everyone else. That's fine, but there's no need to run it down. If it's not for you, great. The other one, and I don't feel strongly about it one way or the other. The high fence one is always the one that gets a lot of it. I'm in Northeast Indiana. We don't have a lot of high fence. I don't travel a lot to do hunting. But I've been on ranches that had high fence, and I know the animals that were supposed to be in there. Still didn't see them. Mm-hmm. It's all easy on the keyboard. Every bit of it's easy on the keyboard.
And people wouldn't come up to those people and say it in person. Very, very few. Because you know what? You would have a very standard argument of, that was legal. I was having a great time. Hunting should be about having fun. And I was successful. Why is using a turkey decoy and shaking them different than me using a buck decoy and bringing in buck after buck after buck? Right. That shouldn't matter. We're using shotguns that are much more advanced. I mean, are you going to take it all the way back to building your own bow and arrow and going out without any clothes on? I mean, come on, we really need to just understand that. I think a little bit of kindness would go a long way. And I think just, again, as long as it's legal, we need to either be supportive or not say nothing at all, right? If you don't like it, no big deal, move on.
And I'm going to found a bunny trail for us, so apologize. And I did a presentation to a group of outdoor writers here not that long ago, and it was the entire crux of my discussion with them. And because we've seen the trail camera bans over the last couple of years, and even if I take my SPYPOINT hat off for a minute, I've been frustrated by this arbitrary line of, well, this is too far. For years it was lighted nocks. Can't use lighted nocks. Mm-hmm. Why? Well, it's too far. Well, no, but why? I've had an argument with several people in the industry for years. I have a background in optics. If you have to turn an illuminated reticle on, it's too dark to shoot anyway. A, that's not how illuminated reticles work. And B, CA. Like, why is that's the line? This is the arbitrary line that we're going to draw. Right now, it's not just hunting, it's fishing too. Whether it's the lighted nocks, that's a line too far. Live scope, though, that's fine. You use a live scope fish finder to go out, and there's 3 bass on the second post back. Great, I can do that. That's no big deal. There's just the intellectual dishonesty behind, well, I don't want to use it, so nobody else should. Makes no sense. In the trail camera example, can't enter a deer into a book now if you used a cell cam. Okay, so if I'm hunting northern New York, big timber whitetail, and I got 3 pictures of a buck in August that I killed with a bow in November. I can't enter that deer. But I can go south a couple thousand miles. I can sit a half mile away from a watering hole and use a rifle that was developed in the last 5 years and optics that have come further in the last 25 years than the 50 prior to that. Using my smartphone to make sure that I'm on the property that I should be with my mapping app, shoot that deer at a half mile, but I didn't use a trail camera. That's fair chase. But cell camera pictures from 2 months ago, bridge too far. It's arbitrary and it's capricious, and it's just the intellectual dishonesty behind those arguments just makes me want to kick walls. I just can't understand. And it all does. It goes back into the recruitment and the retention. I mean, there's a lot of reasons that people are leaving, but those are big reasons that people are leaving or just not getting into it.
Right. And if you want to keep people involved, our SPYPOINT app is one of the best ways to get kids excited, right? Mm-hmm. Jack's with Ben every day on the pictures, and right now
more so than you, to hear you tell the story. Yeah,
it is true. Those two are all about it, and they favorite them, and I come in and I check the favorites because I don't have time to go through that many pictures every day. And they're all about it. But, to have Jax know where they are, we were out last night, put a camera out for coyotes, and then he gets to check the next morning. That's cool for kids to see, Mm-hmm. Like, I can't stress enough that it's it's a year-round thing. We bought land in Illinois, and we watch turkeys down there. We watch deer. We watch them lose their antlers. We're watching them regrow their antlers. And you know what? That's fun for him. And we're not going to drive him 13 hours to go check it out right now.
Right.
But we have a way to be able to see it. And as a kid, they're in the digital age, right? That's totally normal. We get pictures and it just makes sense. We run down to our little grove down here, and him and I will wave, and we'll take a picture on there, and it sends it back, and he'll laugh and check it. And it's just, I think there's a lot of value that people don't see that's far beyond even the hunting aspect of it. Mm-hmm. That's just getting them involved and making it a part of your lifestyle, really putting that passion into kids early. Otherwise, you're going to lose them.
There are so many constraints on our time that weren't there 2 and 3 generations ago. There are so many competing things for our time, whether it's work or sports or whatever the case may be. There's a million other things, and every one of those is an excuse to not hunt. Mm-hmm. And if at every opportunity you belittle or make it more difficult or make it harder for people to get into it, you can't then also be the guy that sits back and says, "Oh, I don't understand why these punk kids don't want to go hunting these days." You can't have it both ways. You cannot have it both ways. All right. So I'm going to put my soapbox away. It generally comes out every episode, but I'm going to put that soapbox away for now because it happens. The other thing I wanted to selfishly ask you about is that 6.8 Western, because when it launched, I am not a ballistics guru, but having the optics background, I'm just ballisticy enough that it a lot of stuff is redundant. I really don't think that one's redundant, and it interested me. So talk a little bit about that 6.8 Western.
So for me, what I've always used is a 300 Win Mag. I shoot 180 grain ballistic silver tip bullet on almost everything I do. And the 6.8 Western really offers very similar knockdown power, but it gives you the long range capabilities, and it makes it so you've got a little bit less recoil. There's a lot of people out there. I would not give my mom my 300 Win Mag. Even with a suppressor on it, it still has enough recoil that's just, some people aren't going to shoot it well because they're scared of it. They're jerking the trigger. There's all that. So when you can reduce any amount of recoil, whether that's with a suppressor or changing cartridges a bit, I think you're better off. And the 6.8 Western, it's made for those longer range shots. Now, for me, I personally very, very rarely ever shoot past 200 yards. In my entire career, I think I've only had 2 shots past 200 yards. So I'm someone who always likes to get in close, but there's a lot of people who hunt areas where either that's not possible or that's as close as they're going to get. And it's time to either make the shot or not. So I think when you pair it with like I use that bog death grip, right? So it locks in your gun, it holds you steady. And I think if people can have the gear that keeps them steadier now, take it to the range, get to know what that cartridge can do, you can be so successful. And it really is an amazing, I took it to Montana the very first year and I shot a whitetail and I couldn't tell anyone what I was using. I just said I had something new. And the blood trail, if you watch that episode, I mean, I'm talking a blood trail bigger than anything you've ever seen with a bow, with anything. And the guide looked at me, he goes, "What did you just shoot and where can I buy it?" Because that was incredible. And it really was neat. And, you know, I'm all about quick, clean kills. And so anything you can do to make you more successful, to make better shots, clean, quick kills, it's all the better. And when Winchester came out with this, I shoot it in the XPR. That's one of my favorite rifles. It's not a super high-end expensive rifle. It is a working rifle. I use it in the field. It gets beat up and that thing, they're incredible. They have a whole line of them that they come out with in different cartridges, but that 6.8 Western, I mean, I shot mule deer, whitetails, all sorts of stuff with it. And it really does an incredible job. And for people who are looking for a little bit longer range, that's a great answer. And who still want the knockdown power. You know, there's a lot of people who like a 6.5 Creedmoor or whatnot. You're going to get a little bit more knockdown power. You almost get the magnums out of this. And to me, I think that's really important, especially when you're looking at elk or some of those bigger animals.
Yeah, that it is. It's a different animal, specifically, literally, pun intended. The Western side of it is a different animal for sure. But it so many people anymore, even if they are primarily a hunter, so much, again, it goes back to social media. So much of what people do now is going to the range, and even with a bow, you know, it's the same. Everybody, I kind of remember, at least I think I kind of remember about a decade ago when people started talking 70, 80. Nobody ever talked about shooting 70 yards when I got into archery 25 years ago. That wasn't what you're going to shoot your 210 foot per second bow 80 yards. No, you're not. But as the technology has improved, if you can practice at 60 and 70, even if you only ever plan to take a hunting shot at 35 or 40, it's a chip shot. And that mindset has always been there for archery. But I don't think, like, everybody goes in and sights a rifle in at 100 yards. Well, why don't you go shoot at 3? Go shoot at 300 yards. If you can shoot good groups at 300, the same concept applies. Now you come back down to your hunting ranges. And you mentioned something too, and I'm going to touch on it again. I'm not going to fully get out the soapbox, but I'm going to ask the question. So what is the magnification of the scope that you have on that 6.8 Western?
I have let's see, on that one, I think I have a 3-12 on that.
A 3-12 for a long range rifle cartridge, not a 6-24.
No.
Not a 5-30. No. I can't believe it. That's another, it's one of my pet peeves, is, again, because of my optics background, that over magnification, it causes more problems than it solves. But like you said, you like to get close. So shots over 200 are rare, but that's the case for pretty much everybody. You know, like I said, I'm in Northeast Indiana, and I know guys, and I've seen people walk into the gun counter and say, I need a 6-24. For where? You can't, your hunting property isn't 400 yards by 400 yards. Why do you need an 800 yard scope? And all the issues that it causes, most shots aren't as far as what people think they're going to be. Doesn't mean you shouldn't practice out there. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't prepare for it. Doesn't mean that, you know, because if you don't, that's where that 180 is going to walk out. That's where that 10-foot brown bear is going to walk out, right? Like, you have to prepare for it, but there's a difference between over gearing just because you think more magnification is going to make you a better shooter. It's not really the case. So again, not full soapbox, but just a little bit, maybe.
Well, and it's important
just one slat from the soapbox.
What they can do, you know, because you can have a gun that's 1,000-yard gun, right? But if you don't know everything to make that happen, it's not, right? And you need to know what you can ethically take good shots at different distances in a hunting situation. So I see people who will get on the bench and they'll shoot, and they shoot great, right? Okay, but now you got to sit on your sticks. You got to be moving around and set up, and maybe not have 10 minutes to calm yourself down and take the shot. You need to know that, because when you get in a hunting situation, I believe you have to be able to say, you know what, I'm not comfortable with that. We either need to get closer or I can't take the shot. And I do it all the time. On bow shots, on gun shots, it doesn't matter. If I'm not 100% comfortable, I'm not taking the shot, because in my mind, if I mess this up, it's over, right? So you really need to be careful about it. And I think that's something that maybe hunters forget, is knowing what that maximum effective range is, and then knowing that's your limitation. That's the cutoff, and don't go beyond that, because you owe it to the animal to try to do it right.
No, I couldn't agree more. All right, we're gonna try to get wrapped up here in a second, but I heard about something when we were able to catch up at ATA show that it was new to me, and I laughed extensively. So I need you to tell everyone about Coyote Popsicles.
So these, we call them baked.
This is Jax's favorite flavor, right?
Yeah.
Coyote Popsicles.
So my husband, Ben's a huge coyote hunter, and him and some of his buddies had done what they call bait sickles. And where we live in South Dakota, it's extremely cold. And throughout the winter, if you find dead deer or cows that have died, whatever it may be, by having kind of a bait station, it's a big help, right? And we put cameras on them. So what we do is we take the big tubs, and we'll take maybe pieces of deer or, extra carcasses from stuff that I've killed throughout the season. You mix in blood, water, and some dog food, and you let it freeze solid. And what you can do, as long as it's legal where you're hunting, you can put those out in the field and chain them down, and then put a camera on them. And now you can see all the coyotes coming in and out, and know when they're coming and which direction they're coming from and what time of the day. But it also preserves it a little bit longer, because if you just throw a deer carcass out there, the coyotes are going to pull it away, things are going to take it, and it'll be gone within a day and a half, right? And it's gone. So this kind of extends your window of time. We have spy points all over with coyote pictures all over. Jax loves seeing them. He comes out in the field and helps us with them, but it's just kind of a different perspective on it. And a lot of what we're doing, we're still coyote hunting right now, but a lot of it's in these calving yards, because it's not just going out and just shooting coyotes for fun. I mean, we enjoy shooting and helping with the predator control, but out here it's ranching country, and these coyotes will come in while all their cows are calving, and they'll start, their goal is just to get the afterbirth to start. But then the next thing, they're messing with the calves, and they get one, and then they realize how delicious a tasty calf is. And now you have a major problem. And Ben will go out, some nights you'll see 10, 15 coyotes circling a calving yard. So you're not just doing it, just to have pictures and to make it fun. You're making yourself a more successful hunter as well by utilizing those. And I think it's just something a lot of people have never thought of. I had never heard of it before, but my husband did it. I help out with them, and they work great.
It is predator hunting is as low a percentage as mature whitetail hunting or even turkey hunting. Man, coyote hunting, unless you have huge tracks where you can kind of react a little bit more, but you get in the East where you're talking, I've got 20 acres over here or 40 acres over here to try to effectively hunt coyotes. Man, it gets frustrating. And I've basically given up right around here locally. I started trapping just to be effective, because the success rate on the hunt was so low, and so many guys will just walk out with an e-collar or a screamer, and they get so call shy so quick. It's really difficult. It
takes them about one time.
Yeah, exactly. Because again, maximum effective range, I see a coyote at 400, I shoot at 200, but I'll just hold over a little bit. Now I've conditioned that dog, and he's never coming back in again. But heard about checking the pictures for Coyote Popsicles while we were at ATA, and I had to stop you. And then once you explained it, I'd heard of guides in Canada that for wolves would do that. They'd take like a moose carcass, a hind quarter or something, and they'd go out onto a lake, and they'd cut a hole in the lake, and they would stick that leg up out of the ice. Same thing. So then they can't carry it off. They have to cross all that frozen water to get to where it's at, so they could, have a better chance at getting a shot at the wolf. But big frozen bucket of things waiting for coyotes was a new one, and I enjoyed that quite a bit. So, All right. Well, I appreciate it. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. I enjoy it thoroughly. Let people know where can they stay up to date with the latest from you and anything else you've got coming yet this year that you wanna chat about.
You can find me anywhere on social media, Melissa Bachman, or go to melissabachman.com. That's my website. It has all the links to anywhere I'm going, what I'm doing, all the updated hunts, shows, everything coming out. You can see Winchester Deadly Passion every single week, year round on Sportsman's Channel. I think it airs about 5 times a week. So catch it there. And I just appreciate you guys having me and love it having, everything to do with SPYPOINT, being a part of the team, and appreciate being on the podcast.
Well, we appreciate having you again. Rate, review, subscribe to the podcast. You can follow SPYPOINT. Just search SPYPOINT on your preferred social media, and we are there. Melissa, always a pleasure. Enjoy. Good luck with turkey season, and hopefully you get some rain soon.
Good luck with your son turkey hunting as well.
Thank you.